Okay, yeah, we're live. So don't do anything I wouldn't do, Kimber.
All right.
All right,
I'm here.
good
You
deal.
got it.
Okay, so what we're going to do right now, and for anybody joining us, they're going to get to watch me whittle down and greatly pare back Kimber's bio here, because I have a lot of bio information right here. Okay. Actually, what we're going to do first is audio levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4,
All
5.
right. We're about even right there. Now, this bio is.
You can just use the first paragraph is fine.
Okay. Okay. That's what I will do. That makes it a little easier for me. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay. So, this is the part where I practice your bio
Okay.
because I've learned if I don't do that, then it gets a little crazy there. If you can you can't even see what I'm seeing, but if you can tilt your laptop just the tiniest little bit towards me.
Up, back, or down?
Yeah, the opposite way. Opposite way. There we go. There we go. Okay.
Better?
Because what was going on, we have a split screen, and so it was kind of like this.
Oh,
And
okay.
now it's like you're a little closer to yours than I am, but it's fine. But
I can back
it
up.
was a little bit like like
How
this
about,
before.
how about here?
Oh, that's great. That's even
Is that
better.
better?
Yeah, that's real
Okay.
good. That's real
Great.
good. Okay. So all right. So Kimber Lanning is founder and executive director of Local First Arizona, a statewide organization implementing innovative strategies for new models of economic development that create vibrant local communities. Economies. Lanning is an entrepreneur, business leader, and community development specialist who works to cultivate strong, self-reliant communities and inspire a higher quality of life for people across Arizona. Actually, I like that second sentence even more. Actually, can
And could I ask you to insert the word foundation? I know it wasn't
sure.
in there, but it should have been. So let's call it, I'm the founder and executive director of the Local First Arizona Foundation.
Foundation, yes. And that's where I'd like to just cut the rest of that sentence. And then Lanning is an entrepreneur, business leader, and community development specialist who cultivates strong, self-reliant communities and inspires a higher quality of life for people across
Perfect.
Arizona. So we're going to make that a little more active. I don't charge for my bio editing on this spot. Things half the people I do that. All right, that's a stronger bio because we want people. Hey, LaDonna, it's good to see you. We're already getting some shout outs from people. It's good. All right, so now we have a stronger. So a good bio is when it's a little. You think it's too short. You're like, hey, Nathan, you slashed and burned my bio. But then people actually go and they dig in and they lean in and they Google you and they reach out and they connect with you
Sure.
because we
Sure.
didn't talk them down too much on the bio. We got them leaning in and a little frustrated on the bio. So
Sounds
we're
good.
good with that. All right, we're making great time. Thank you for calling in when you did. I love it
Yeah.
when different people on the we weren't on the Facebook Live. That would have been really fun, but I actually I have to stop the Facebook Live because I realize I'm a horrible podcast host if we don't have any like private debriefing time where
Oh,
it's
sure.
like if everything if you forget or I forget that everything's on Facebook Live, it's not that's not good. So
Yeah.
I just kind of as an ethics thing have to shut off the Facebook Live just to make sure everything's good, have a little bit of conversational privacy at the
That
end.
sounds
But
good.
it's cool when you have the last speaker and then the next speaker, and then they have a little bit of mentoring going on and all of that. So it's all good.
Awesome.
All right, let me make sure I have your localfirstaz.com is your website, correct?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to put that in there. Make sure to have that in there as well. All right. Create overlay. That's great. Okay. Well, hey, any questions for me? I didn't even summarize the onboarding video. So did I remember to send you the onboarding video first of all, Kimber?
Mm,
Maybe not. This is why I ask.
onboarding video.
Yeah.
No.
Now, if you have to think about it, then I didn't remember to send it. So it's simple. All right. So first 2 minutes, take us behind the talk. Tell me a story. Summarize the talk. This is not a performance. Whatever you remember is great. Whatever you forget, that's fine too. You already gave the performance. I'm just going to ask you to summarize the talk and tell us stories wherever possible. Then we're going to just have a conversation. So tell me more stories, conversation. I'll ask you questions. I don't know what questions I'm going to ask. We're going to have a conversation. So I'll hold true to the spirit of the conversation. Then we'll have the blitz round. Those are a bunch of either or faster questions about the prep and the performance of your talk. And that's where we kind of pivot to Talk Universe and really try to help them out a little bit. Then the final word of advice, then we're done. It's a 15 to 20-minute interview. Goes by pretty
That sounds good. Yeah, that sounds really good. And it's okay. Perfect.
Yeah, that's all it is. So any questions for me? And we're pretty much right on schedule at this point.
I don't think so.
All right. Well,
no,
good.
I don't
And
think
by
so.
the way, we're about 5 weeks out from go live.
Sounds
That's
good.
the question that we have.
So we're not doing the Facebook Live?
Oh yeah, Facebook is
Okay.
live, so that's a kind of a blast. So we have actually it looked like 3 people watching us as of a couple seconds ago. So
Okay.
this is just a nice little extra bonus to get word out. And I think, was I able to live tag you yesterday when I did that giant tag?
I have no idea.
Don't look it up. Don't take the
Okay.
time to look it up. But
Okay.
if you weren't and you wish to be live tagged, because the humble brag really starts right now, is what I tell people. You know, it's like, oh, you know, what a great interview, and then you say, well, what a great podcast, and then that's kind of social media, socially acceptable to do that, as opposed to it was huge and this is bigly amazing and my interview was amazing. No, my podcast was amazing, and we talk like that. Most people, with one exception, one very prominent exception here in the United States, most people don't even like to promote themselves that way. So, so the humble brag is cross promoting on social. If you were not live tag and you want to be live tag on LinkedIn and Facebook, just make sure you're connected to me personally, not just to the Be the Talk. Because then I can live tag, and then Facebook kind of throttles you back on the book, on the pages, but not so much on the personal profile. And so I've got 17 people that I'm interviewing yesterday and today total. And so I just do now. This week I did a pre and tagged everybody and got a fair amount of engagement. Then I'm going to do a post tomorrow when I recover from, I think, 7 interviews today and 11 interviews yesterday. And when I recover, I'll just do a post, and then I'll be able to actually share what you said and summarize what Dr. Wong said and all of this, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay, great.
So that was an earful. That was a little bit much, but we're about ready to rock. Any final questions for me, Kimber?
I don't think so. I'm
All
good.
right. Well, good. All right. Well, we are ready to go. And I'll pull up my spreadsheet here. All right, we are ready to rock in 3, 2. We are live with Kimber Lanning. Kimber, are you ready to talk?
I'm ready. I'm here and I'm ready.
Kimber Lanning is founder and executive director of Local First Arizona Foundation. Lanning is an entrepreneur, business leader, and community development specialist who cultivates strong, self-reliant communities and inspires a higher quality of life for people all across Arizona. Kimber Lanning, welcome to the talk.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Your talk is called The Economy is Ours to Own. I love the points that you made there. I love it because we're in a time right now, even recently, earlier today, I'm seeing this whole, the baby boomers and the millennials are blaming the baby boomers and the vice versa, and the Generation X people like me, or, where everybody's pointing fingers and why is there a problem? I love that you're trying to help out the generations, and you lay out a compelling case for why we need to invest locally to help our own kids, to help out the next generation and our grandchildren, and really make that viable. So please take us behind the talk.
So what's important to me is that people walk away from the talk with a better understanding of how the economy actually works. I think too often we get hit with a barrage of information on the news and certainly billions of dollars worth of advertising, and it's really caused us to become disconnected from our economy. So my point with my talk is that we are voting with our dollars every day, and that the choices we make impact our community today, but also opportunities for people in the future. So the basic point is that you could have 30,000 Starbucks locations across the U.S., and they're still only going to support one accountant and one graphic designer and one website developer. But if we have 30,000 independent coffee shops, they in turn hire 30,000 graphic designers to do a logo, 30,000 website developers, etc. That's called the multiplier effect, and it keeps dollars moving through the economy, and that's what keeps us all employed and keeps sales tax moving and all of those things that make our communities thrive. And so the basic concept is that we need to own our economy and spend our money like we want to create jobs.
So this sounds like, we're always talking as entrepreneurs. Normally, we want to scale things. Is it scalable? We're watching Shark Tank on TV. Is it scalable? All of this. And what I love is that you're really putting a qualitative lens in terms of the quality of life, in terms of local culture, in terms of family, in terms of local sustainability, and you're really taking that whole get your most bang for your buck kind of cheapo mentality in some ways, turning it on its head and asking the question, how do we really want to live? What kind of a society, what kind of a culture, what kind of homegrown uniqueness do we really want to have? So is that a fair thing to say? That's kind of my over summary of your talk.
No, I think that's a good summary. I also like to just help people understand that they need to think about what are the true costs associated to cheap. So, for example, if you save $5 on a hammer that's built on the other side of the world, that number one doesn't support any jobs here in your community, and you buy it online and have it shipped to you, and then it falls apart in 3 or 4 years. Have you really saved money? So the entire U.S. population is sort of on this short-term thinking gratification. And so we're trying to get people to think about the true costs associated. So another example would be a lot of folks spend money in big box retailers that have deals in their community for what's called a sales tax abatement. So let's just say you're shopping at Staples here in Arizona. Staples has 65% part-time employees with no healthcare benefits. So those employees end up on the state's healthcare plan, and we're paying for that. And so we need to understand that those aren't actually cheaper prices. That's what's called deferred billing. We're just paying for it in a different way. So I like to really educate folks about, when those deals are done and helping people understand, one of the things that I mention is, Cabela's outdoor sports recreation. They, most people think they're in the business of fishing tackle, et cetera, but they're not. They're in the business of subsidies. They average $35 million in subsidies per store. And the one here in Arizona got a $68 million subsidy. And that's painful. That means they got to keep a 10-year sales tax abatement. You go in and buy a tent, pay your sales tax, they get to keep it. That's money that's supposed to be going toward parks and libraries and fire departments. So we can't continue to spend our money with these companies, which is basically saying, I support this behavior, and then at the same time be mad that our libraries are closing or that our fire departments can't keep up. So it's just, we can't have our cake and eat it too. And some people get it immediately, and other people are very resistant, and it's pretty interesting to watch. Some people don't want to give up their convenience, and I'm not saying that you have to. There's certainly plenty of things you can do besides shopping, like getting a haircut. You can do that locally. Like getting an oil change, do that locally. There's lots of things that you can do. Even going to the grocery store and picking out the Arizona grown eggs or carrots or whatever you can keeps more dollars and opportunities right here in your community.
Well, and I'm in the third division because I used to be resistant, and now I'm really seeing all the data points pointing in a certain direction. I can already think of two examples, current examples that we're all familiar with. One is which Donald Trump had a 40-year tax abatement. It's all in all the documentaries that we're watching. That's how he was able to get started in Manhattan, through 40-year tax abatements on his real estate. And whether you agree with that or not, that's a fact. That's what he used to get started in addition to his famous loan from his father. Another thing is everybody. I'm here. I live in Delaware, and right outside Philadelphia, and every other major city in America bending over backwards for the Amazon HQ2 headquarters. Everybody just competing and bending over backwards, doing all this stuff. And what is it really for? It's really just going for the largest of the large cities, from what I see in the semifinals, and all the mid-sized cities basically took all that effort, and it was kind of hopefully good for publicity or PR for them. Hopefully they can repurpose that, but other than that, I mean, they kind of didn't have a chance. So
well, and that's just it. The Institute for Local Self-Reliance did a fantastic study that really looks at the true cost of Amazon. And believe me, that's not a moneymaker for any one city. When you factor in, when their shipping is being paid by the U.S. government, everything they ship is slightly subsidized by the U.S. government, and you multiply that by the millions of things being shipped. They definitely are getting sales tax abatements. So I find it ironic, they're still not collecting sales tax in so many states. And, they can figure out how to get a drone to drop a package at your house, but they say the sales tax codes are too cumbersome for them to navigate. So it's really important that we all understand that our spending created the second richest man in the world in 10 years. That this is what our spending did, and that money is being extracted out of our communities, and we need to really take a good hard look at it. Another thing is the psychology. I just want to mention, people really are convinced that they can get the best prices on Amazon. There's a gentleman that just did a huge study. His company is coming out of Atlanta, that shows that people who actually pay for Amazon Prime are paying more than everyday Joes 56% of the time. And so they're psychologically trying it out all the time, upping your prices and seeing if you'll buy it. And the more you just buy without checking, the more they're going to throw higher prices at you, because you're not paying attention. So again, we need to really open our eyes and take a look at what's happening in the country.
Kimber, this is so funny. I mean, you can tell me to be quiet about these crazy anecdotes, but I'm just seeing myself when you're talking about Amazon Prime and not, being lulled into a false sense of getting the best deal without checking anymore. Reminds me of an 18-year-old college student named Nathan Eckel back in the day, driving an hour off campus with his friends to the local Sam's Club warehouse store to buy like 20 packs of ketchup bottles and saving like a nickel on each one and thinking he was getting a deal. I mean, it's exactly the same thing, right?
It is. It is. People are funny. And so we got to get into that psychology and help them reclaim the economy. Studies have now shown that for every 2 jobs a big national chain creates, 3 actual jobs in that community where that new chain store stands, in less than 5 years, 3 jobs will be lost for every 2 that were created. So you're seeing a net loss of jobs around those big box stores, and we have to ask ourselves, what is the cost of that? That's a huge cost to our community, and so no amount of savings is going to get that back to level. It's not a model that works for the U.S. economy.
So, Kimber, just give me a case study or an example of what you're actually physically doing, boots on the ground right there in Arizona, to try to make people not just aware of this, but do you have any wins that you can speak to?
Yeah, we do. And you know what? We are just wrapping up Community Banking Month. And so, again, banking is not something most people think about that often. But how, you're basically giving I know. I already saw it, Nathan.
I'm drinking out of a Starbucks cup and starting to realize that Kimber can see me. Those of you listening on the podcast, we're doing a Facebook Live, so she just outed me. Continue.
But so for Community Banking Month, we're helping people recognize that if you have your money in a big, huge corporate bank that's not headquartered in your community, and the underwriting for the business loans happens on the other side of the country, the likelihood of your small businesses in your community actually being able to access capital is slim to none. So we're advocating for people to move their money into community banks where there's more local decision making over the lending, because local community banks, they actually have to keep money loaned back out of the community. That's how they make money. So here in Arizona, we actually have moved a 4% market share from the three biggest banks to our community banks. And that is a very, very big number, 4% market share over the last 3 years. And we're continuing to push on that. Lots of more people waking up and saying, hey, I want my money invested locally. But I think it's important that, some people that are environmentally sensitive, maybe they're driving a Prius, they're doing everything they can to recycle and compost. If your money is sitting in a big corporate bank that has taken your money and invested it in coal and oil, then it's really undermining any of the efforts that you're making. So really what we're doing at Local First is educating people about where their money goes and helping them with solutions to make it easy to do something about it. So moving your money, looking at my home mortgage I have with a credit union now, and I know where that money is because it stays in Arizona and gets loaned back out into the community. And it just gives you peace of mind.
Well, and I discovered that maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the whole credit union thing. I used to think that they were very exclusive, that you had to have a certain kind of job or work at a certain kind of company. And I believe the laws changed about 20 years ago, 15 years ago to expand it. So it's real easy competition, good competition for the big banks. And it's really hard to go bad with a community based credit union.
That's right. Credit unions and community banks are doing a great job. They're getting regulated pieces in this environment because so much of the regulatory stuff, which was put in place really to keep the big banks under control, but it's really causing the smaller banks to strain under the weight of the regulatory environment. But nonetheless, the customer service I receive from my community bank is phenomenal.
You can't beat it.
You can't, when I was with a big bank, they didn't know or care who I was. My little store, I've been there 30 years. And now I walk in, I know everybody at the bank. They'll call me if there's any problems. I had a teller say, this is such a funny story, Nathan. I was out of town and we had an emergency and my assistant had to sign my name on a check. The teller called me on my cell phone. I'm across the country and said, I'm looking at a check and I don't think this is your signature.
Recognize your, how home.
I had to confess to her, it's actually not, but it's okay for you to cash it,
That's
and what are the chances?
Yeah. So, not only do they know your name, they know your signature.
That's right.
And it's not because of some robot program either.
That's right. It's I feel like the nation is slowly dividing into two camps, those that are focused on convenience and those that are focused on relationships. And I think that a lot of people are not aware that this is happening and they're sort of focused on convenience. And just like the boiling frog syndrome, their relationships are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. And when they suddenly start doing more business locally and those relationships start to get formed, they go, oh, this feels much better now. I didn't realize how far I had shifted. And the other thing I want to point out is what's interesting is, 5 years ago, there was the death knell of all the independent businesses are going to be dead soon. And the media just perpetuated that story. And now if you watch closely, what's happening is every story that comes out about how great Amazon is doing has a little footnote that says, and boy, those local businesses are doing way better than anyone ever thought they would. We had more bookstores open in the last year than in the 10 years before that. Record stores are booming. There's people out there saying, yes, I want to vote with my wallet and I'm going to choose to support local businesses. Now, the ones that are failing in the middle first are the big boxes that aren't offering convenience or relationships. right? And we see like 190 chain stores are offering store closures and layoffs in 2018. So it's pretty remarkable to see people waking up to the importance of those relationships that are offered by local businesses.
We've been having a really fun conversation with Kimber Lanning about local businesses and local economies. If I don't watch out, we're going to totally miss the Blitz round. We don't want to forget about you, Talk Universe. We're here to talk about you. I'm going to ask Kimber a series of either or questions related to the performance and the preparation of her talk. Kimber, are you ready?
I am ready. I'm here.
All right. Question number 1. Were you selected to speak or did you apply?
I was selected. I was very lucky. I got an email.
Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
Totally an improviser. In all of my practicing, it never came out the same twice. Never twice.
Did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
So it's interesting. I do keynotes. I fly around the country and speak. The TED Talk makes you nervous because of the time. You've got this flashing red thing and you're trying to time it. So I never get worried about what I'm going to say ever. But I do worry if there's this hard deadline and you want to get all your information in. And so I tell you, it made me more nervous than any other talk I've ever done.
Maybe this is a generational thing, but I'm always wondering if there's going to be like a gong and then this big shepherd's hook, appearing from the side of the stage and kind of yanking my neck off of the slowly off like maybe too many cartoons or the Gong Show or something.
For me, because I don't do well memorizing, I worry that I'll leave something out that's critically important for it to make sense, because I'm talking about a complex issue and there's all these key points that have to tie together in someone's mind for them to follow along. And if you just leave one of them out, people are going to be like, what was she talking about?
I know,
and that was
feeling.
my biggest fear.
Yeah. I have that exact. All those details are important. And, so I know the feeling very well. What's a tip, a technique, or a tool that helped you?
Building better slides, because I'm a visual. I cue off my slides. And so I think that I usually put up a slide and then I talk for a good long while and I put up a slide. I actually broke it down further and got into a rhythm of moving faster with my slides, and that helped me remember the points that I wanted to make. So for those of you that are improvisers, drill down into the concepts, no matter how basic they seem. Drill down into it so that they're like breadcrumbs. They keep you on your path.
We've been enjoying this talk with Kimber Lanning, and before we come back to her for the 30-second final word of advice for You Talk Universe, I want to let you know where you can go to find her. First of all, you can check out her talk, The Economy is Ours to Own, and you can do that by typing it into YouTube, or you don't want to do that, go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We have a link that you can click, as well as you can go over to localfirstaz.com. Local first, the word first, az.com. Kimber Lanning, we're back to you for the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
I think what the takeaway is, just settle into it and be yourself. I mean, as sort of broad as that sounds, I think it's really easy to overthink it and get into the details. Just speak from your heart about what you're passionate about. And if it's not perfect, you got to be able to forgive yourself and know that you put your best into it. And I think in this world of TED Talks, people really like to see passion. And so I think the passion is more important than the details.
Great points. Kimber Lanning, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's a wrap.
Awesome.
It sure goes by fast.
It sure does, yeah.
That was a little scary. We were like 16 minutes. About 11, 12 minutes usually when I pivot.
Oh, okay.
I'm starting to really slack off on the timer piece. I'm not careful.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for forgiving my evil goddess of darkness here. That moment when you're talking about the evil of scalability and you realize you're showing. Oh my gosh! And then we do this, and you're reading
I
it off of
know.
that.
I know.
I
saw it
I
before
should
you
put like
said
a
it.
Mr. Yuck sticker on here instead.
No. We try not to be too anti. We just try to educate and inform. That's all.
Yeah, I don't remember what Starbucks must have done about 10 years ago. There used to be a very anti-Starbucks vibe, and I think maybe the way they source their coffee or something, they must have changed a
Yeah.
few things because it's not as rapid as it used to be.
If you have money to spend, you can change people's opinion on your PR without
Yeah.
changing your actions. So I'm not sure they changed anything.
Yeah, that might be the case. Well, it
Yeah,
was fun,
yeah.
and especially, I mean, I started I start thinking about graphic design contests where they all compete, and you can pay $1,000 and 1,000 graphic designers who are silly enough and naive enough to compete against each other, basically waste all of their time and then go broke and have to work for a company instead of being independent because they jumped at some, you know,
Sure.
crowdsourcing program. And all kinds of examples that were popping in my mind talking to
Yeah.
you about this. So thanks
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
rocking and rolling on that, laughing at my little ketchup joke.
Oh yeah. No, it's good. It's awesome. It's awesome. Well, thank you, Nathan. What a pleasure to meet you. And
Yeah,
I sure do
likewise.
appreciate your interest and your time. It was fantastic.
Yeah, well, thanks again so much. Let's actually get off of Facebook.